Hello, fellow seekers. My family of fellow seekers. Family just sounds better, doesn't it? Because we are a family. Y'all put up with me. Y'all aren't anything to put up with, so I appreciate you all. So, of course, my next video was going to be of Daryl, and it still will be after this one. But I got to tell you, I've got to get this Alec Baldwin case dismissal out of my system because it's something that rarely happens. And what's crazier yet, I haven't even followed this. I mean, I knew of it. I didn't follow Hannah Gutierrez, the armorer, her trial, which I know she got 18 months for involuntary manslaughter. Now it's Alec's turn to face the criminal charges, and then on day 3 it's dismissed, and it's like, what? So what had happened was I didn't watch it day 1, and then I like, maybe I will watch it. And so I went on one of my favorite YouTuber attorneys, Emily D. Baker, and she was streaming it live. So I didn't make it for day 1, but I made it for day 2 and day 3, and I just got mesmerized. Number one, she's great. Anybody who has seen her, her commentary's funny. She likes to curse. I like that too, everything. But I love her insight and the way she reacts, and I was on the edge of my chair. So like I said, I missed day 1 with the opening statements, all that. But by day 2, I'd gotten into it. And then day 3, all this stuff is happening. Then there was the dismissal, and I'm like, what? And she's what? Everybody's going, what? So I just thought I'd bring forth a little bit to you all. And like I said, I knew of it. But like I said, I did not follow the trial. I followed very little. I maybe could have been a juror for this. Not that I would, but so this happened in, okay, let me get my dudes together. Oh my goodness. It was October of 2021. I think it was October 21st, yes, 2021 at the Bonanza Creek Ranch in New Mexico. And they were filming the movie Rust, where Alec Baldwin, I guess, was the producer, director, or whatever. And he was the one holding the weapon that was given to him by the armorer, Hannah, who supposedly was supposed to have checked it, but then later they said he should have checked it too, and then he did fire it, but later he claims he didn't. That's, I can't get into all the technicalities of that there, but I can give you an overview, because I do like to try to do research, so it always takes me longer to put up something. Some people are really good about just throwing it together and putting it out, but I really do like to try to fact check the best I can. But before we go on, those of you all who maybe have been with me for a little while know how important the victims are to me, because we always lose sight of the victim. And this was a woman, in her early 40s, and just to learn a little bit about her. Now, people keep calling her Helena, but I think her husband called her Helena or Helena. We'll just say Helena Hutchins. And this was just a little background. I think a friend of hers was talking about her because, all of this is going on. But you know what? At the end of the day, a husband and a little boy still don't have their person. So let's just take a look at a little bit about her.
Adam Egypt Mortimer tells me Helena's friendliness was unlike anything he's ever seen, and when it came to her talent as a filmmaker, she was one of a kind.
I mean, it's just unbelievably shocking.
Adam Egypt Mortimer, at a loss for words over the death of his friend, Helena Hutchins.
So
She's
pretty.
One of those people who sort of immediately had a kind of, like a kind of vibe. I was like, who is this cool person? I want to know more.
The two aspiring filmmakers met at a film festival in Spain. Their meeting soon led to a small movie collaboration.
With Helena, she had an absolute commitment to art, to like making art and to loving art. So I felt like I could communicate with her on this really sort of beautiful level.
Mortimer says he found out about Helena's death from a mutual friend and that he's been in complete shock since.
It doesn't make it's hard to process. She's like somebody that you think of as a rising star.
Adding that prop gun accidents on movie sets just don't happen.
It's unbelievable that something like this could happen, that a set would do something so unsafe, that it would lead to a tragedy like this.
Mortimer says he and several others are desperately searching for answers into her death. Kaylin?
So there's that. I know that's not a lot, but at least it shows a little bit of her. And then what I was looking for was something where her husband speaks. And this was not real long after this whole horrible thing occurred. So a lot of things that people are accusing Alec Baldwin with is that not just the fact that, you know, it happened. Again, they keep saying the armorer should have been responsible for that, but that he says he didn't pull the trigger. Whether he did or didn't, I can't say, but I think, and I haven't even seen this yet. I'd pull that out, but I don't want to waste too much time. Y'all can go look at it if you want to. I think the biggest problem is that he just talked too much. I'm telling you, less is more, and I think he went and blathered on not long after on an interview with George Stephanopoulos. I have not seen it, but I think probably if he just kept his mouth shut, it would have been easier. And plus, there were accusations that perhaps he was reckless on the set. This I do not know, and I don't have time to cover all of that, but this is very early on. Okay, so this is her husband who speaks out, and very, of course, upset, as he should be.
Watching him, I just felt so angry. Just so angry.
These are his first words since that tragic day in New Mexico.
A camera woman has been shot.
Just 4 months after his wife was shot and killed on the set of Rust. Matt Hutchins didn't pull any punches on the Today Show talking about Alec Baldwin's tearful ABC interview, trying to explain what he says happened.
I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No.
To see him talk about her death so publicly in such a detailed way, and then to not accept any responsibility after having just described killing her. The idea that the person holding the gun, causing it to discharge, is not responsible is absurd to me.
In response to the lawsuit Matt has filed against Alec and several others on the production, Baldwin's attorney said this: any claim that Alec was reckless was entirely false. But Hutchins' attorney released this dramatic and graphic digital recreation of how they claim she died.
I think it's clear what happened. Alec had the gun in his hand. He shot it. Helena was killed. The gun cannot fire unless the trigger is engaged and the hammer is back. So he had the gun. He says he pulled the hammer back. It fired. She was killed.
Just days after the shooting, Matt was seen with Alec in New Mexico.
Did he seem distraught during that time?
There were a lot of emotions, for
Yeah.
sure, on both sides.
A long-time marriage, soulmate is lost, and a boy to be raised without a mother at a young age is a tremendous loss. And anyone that's even been close to experiences knows that goes on forever and ever and ever.
Matt and Helena were married 16 years. He now wears her ring on his hand.
In the end, justice won't bring Helena back, but maybe the memory of her can help keep people safe and prevent something like this from ever happening again.
Helena is what he said. Oh, what a beautiful woman. And see, at the end of the day, with all of this and that, and he said, she said, there we go. There's our victim. And nothing will change that. but I definitely wanted to be sure to recognize her because she's the one who her family will be. A lot of families, will, of course, will be forever affected, but nothing like Helena's family. What a beautiful woman, isn't she? Oh my goodness. So due to that dismissal, there will be no criminal charges against Alec Baldwin. That part's done, but of course there's still the civil suits and all that. But I thought I had heard that they had reached a settlement with Helena's husband, and it looks like this was filmed like about a year after the tragedy, and it explains a little bit about the settlement. So let's take a look at that.
A year after the fatal shooting on the set of Rust, the family of cinematographer Helena Hutchins has reached a settlement in a wrongful death lawsuit with the film's producers, including Alec Baldwin, the movie star and the man behind the fatal bullet. In a statement, her husband Matthew says, "All of us believe Helena's death was a terrible accident. I have no interest in engaging in recriminations or attribution of blame to the producers or Mr. Baldwin. It's a major change in tone since he sat down exclusively with Hoda in February."
And the idea that the person holding the gun, causing it to discharge, is not responsible is absurd to me.
While a financial agreement has not been disclosed, Matthew Hutchins will now be an executive producer on the film, which will go back into production early next year. It all comes as the Santa Fe District Attorney could file criminal charges against as many as 4 people, possibly including Baldwin himself.
Each of those charges will probably include some variation of our homicide statute.
The DA says the settlement will have no impact on the ongoing criminal investigation or the decision to press charges, adding, "No one is above the law."
Can the DA still move forward without the victim's family's support? Technically, the DA's prospective case against these defendants has not been weakened at all by this settlement, but practically speaking, it has, because reluctant victims make for a difficult prosecution.
Earlier this year, attorneys for the Hutchins family released this animation they say shows how Baldwin was holding the gun as a live round was fired with Helena standing just 4 feet away. That bullet killed the 42-year-old and injured the film's director Joel Souza, who now says he'll return to finish the film.
I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
Baldwin, who has denied responsibility for the accident, called the agreement a resolution to a tragic and painful situation.
Justice is a tricky concept.
Meanwhile, Helena's family says they hope the settlement will help pay tribute to her final work.
I mean, she deserved to live and nothing can bring her back.
Okay, so Miguel, now what happens? So what happens once they decide whether or not there will be criminal charges?
Well, we expect the DA to file criminal charges if they do later this month, and if a case is brought against Alec Baldwin, it's possible that a criminal trial in the shooting could be underway at the very same time filming for Rust is expected to resume, potentially putting the Hollywood star in the role of actor and defendant at the same time. Hoda?
Very strange turn of events there. Miguel Almaguer for us. Miguel, thank you.
So, and which in fact it did. So, I'm just a person, just an observer, but it seemed like in that last video with the settlement, my opinion was that Helena's husband, just wanted to get on with it. I don't know that he was necessarily very interested in bringing forth criminal charges. I mean, after a while, it's like he says nothing can bring her back. I feel like I had heard he and Baldwin had reached some sort of agreement. I mean, I don't know. I can't say. And as far as what I think about Baldwin, I don't know. I can't say either way. It's like, it's just, but I wanted to show this before I got into it because this was something that her husband was speaking out because police released some footage short after, that was upsetting to him, and he felt like they should have spoken to him before. So I think that, I don't know, there's so much more that this poor man has to worry about. But I just thought it'd be worth sharing because, like I said, I want to pay respect and spend some time on the victim, Helena.
Decision to publicly release video showing Helena Hutchins' final moments in the Rust Tech shooting. The family of the cinematographer condemning the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office for releasing video of the chaotic scene when she was shot and killed, and demanding the footage be taken down, saying the move failed to respect the family's dignity and privacy by releasing the materials to the public before releasing the materials to Mr. Hutchins. An attorney for Matt Hutchins writing in a letter, the first time Mr. Hutchins saw the disturbing and unsettling video footage of his dying wife lying on the church floor was on Radar Online, an internet website. Adding about the couple's 9-year-old son, we fear, for example, that this shocking footage of Andros's mother dying may be material used by bullies to emotionally abuse him in the future. Tonight, the sheriff is declining NBC's request for an interview, saying earlier this week on Today, his office released the evidence in response to public records requests.
Were you under an obligation to release it right now?
Not right now. It took us some time to put it together, and we tried to release it as soon as we had everything together.
The trove of videos and documents made public 6 months into the Rust investigation. It includes raw clips of actor Alec Baldwin moments after the fatal shooting, and tonight, new video released by the sheriff's office shows Baldwin hours later learning Hutchins had died.
I do have some very unfortunate news to tell you. She didn't make it.
The actor declining NBC's request for comment tonight. Baldwin's attorney earlier this week says he believes the evidence shows he acted responsibly and was very careful with guns on set. Matt Hutchins not commenting beyond his statement, but saying this to Hoda in February about the public nature of the shooting.
Why did the fact that details were out there, why was that so bothersome?
Well, I mean, think about how you would feel. All of this happened so publicly. Justice won't bring Helena back, but maybe the memory of her can help keep people safe.
Tonight, a grieving husband and worried father struggling to protect his family from very public pain.
No kidding. I totally understand that. Can you imagine, the way kids are? And what is this? This happened in 21. So his son is probably like around 12 now. Kids are so mean and they're so internet savvy. It's just, there's just so much about this that's just, just very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. This is too many people involved. There might be a little bit more to this. Let me see.
All right, Maggie Vespa joins us now live from Los Angeles. Maggie, there are multiple lawsuits flying back and forth in this case. Let's start with Matt Hutchins, Helena's husband. He's filed a wrongful death suit against Alec Baldwin and the film's producers. Is he personally taking action yet tied to the release of this video?
Yeah, Tom, not at this time. Right now, he's just demanding via his attorneys the sheriff's office take that video down. But as you said, there are multiple lawsuits, and we just got an update on another one. Lawyers for Rust producers late today asking the court to remove a request for punitive damages in a suit filed by a script supervisor, a woman named Mamie Mitchell. They argue Mitchell legally needs to prove producers acted, in their words here, with malice or oppression leading up to the shooting. But in her suit, they argue she describes just a series of mistakes basically made on set. We should know we have reached out to Mitchell and her attorney, Gloria Allred. No response at this time.
Well, there you go there. But to me, it seems like the husband is more about and the fact that, of course, at that time they hadn't reached that settlement. And then I guess there's more things out there. But I don't know. I know people are probably split on this, but just be sure that in the comments that you're nice to me, you're nice to one another. We can certainly have a difference of opinion, but I honestly don't know what to think or say. It's a horrible thing. I definitely just wanted to focus some on the family and how horrendous this has been for them. And now I'll get to the point with how and why this all happened and Baldwin's case was dismissed. Okay, in this little clip, a defense attorney gives a little bit more idea of what happened and why. But it all kind of comes down to the prosecution not doing, well, one of them not doing their job, Carrie Morrissey. Now, I did not see her. I didn't see the first day, but now the second day, when I was on watching with Emily D. Baker, she was saying she was very good. They had a really good day. Just like Sarah Boone, it was a good day for the prosecution. So apparently she was good with everything that she had, her info and all this kind of stuff. So Carrie Morrissey, apparently she was given evidence. Someone came and gave evidence. And as the prosecutor, see, I'm learning more and more about this stuff. It's the prosecutor's job to turn over any evidence that they receive. But she felt like, it wasn't significant. So it was put in a different folder. Now, if that doesn't sound sneaky to me, I don't know what does. So that means like the person who handles the evidence was involved, the lead detective was involved, and then they have it on body cam to boot. And so anything that is withheld from the defense, that is what prompts a dismissal. So the defense, the jury had been excused at this point, and so the defense did ask for dismissal. And I'm just kind of like, because you see this all the time in cases, and I just thought it was nothing. Oh, it turned out to be something big. And so at first, the judge had dismissed the jury and was going to bring them back. And then as things got a little deeper, she went ahead and excused them until Monday. So then I started to sit up a little bit straighter in my seat, and Emily D. Baker was saying, whoa, what's going on here? And so things got really interesting, including the fact that Carrie Morrissey got up there and testified, and Alec Baldwin's defense attorney questioned her. They say, I don't know, that rarely happens or if it ever happened at all, but it was weird because she volunteered to get up there. The judge had told her, even the Baldwin's attorney, no, I don't need to, but she was just like, I want to get up here. I don't know what she thought she was going to do with all that, but I'll share some of that with you. But first, I'm going to let this defense attorney explain a little bit more about it better than me.
Against Alec Baldwin, dismissed with a prejudice by a judge today. And tonight we have defense attorney Rachel Fassé with us to help understand this major move. Rachel, thanks for being with us tonight.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, what was your initial reaction when you heard the ruling? Were you surprised about it?
Well, what I was surprised about was that they had an all-day hearing relating to this issue. And frankly, the prosecutorial misconduct allegations and what bore out through the hearing are indeed a bit surprising, in that the prosecutor did not turn over evidence that the judge found, and frankly, to a layperson, seemed essential to the defense of this case, and that is absolutely not allowed. Prosecutors are held to a high standard, and they have to turn over evidence even if it's bad for their case.
And the prosecutor even, didn't she take the stand herself? The judge asked her questions.
It was an unbelievable day of hearings trying to determine what happened here. And the prosecutor took the stand herself. She did not find that this evidence was relevant, but it had to do with live ammunition on the set, which is basically the essential issue in this case. And the fact that they booked this evidence under a different case file, the judge was clearly not impressed with what was happening here.
So, Rachel, I guess it's safe to say that we often don't see rulings like this 3 days into a trial where a judge will just throw out the charges?
That was the best result that the defense team could have had, and 3 days into a jury trial that has been ongoing, yes, this is incredibly unusual.
What exactly the prosecutors, what are they accused of doing? Hiding evidence. I mean, that should have been, for someone like yourself, I mean, you have so much experience, I hate to say it, but shouldn't they have known better? Rachel?
They absolutely should have known better. This is the rule number one of being a prosecutor is you have to turn over all of the evidence, even if it is bad for your case. And they are held to this ethical standard. They absolutely should have known better. And the evidence was provided to them in March, and it accidentally basically came out in testimony yesterday that this evidence existed. The defense team was surprised to learn this evidence existed, and then today played out with a motion to dismiss and this hearing relating to this evidence that they essentially either hid or unreasonably withheld, thinking it was not relevant to the case at hand.
What happens next? Is there a next?
Well, Alec Baldwin is done. So it was dismissed with prejudice, which means the case against him is over. So he is a free man, and that has to be an incredible relief to him. But there will be an inquiry as to what happened. There will be an internal investigation at the DA's, and the DA may also suffer other consequences like bar sanctions or other sanctions relating to really violating their ethical duties.
Okay, well, that's a lot. Oh, the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she was supposed to appear, but, well, that didn't happen now because the trial, the charges have been dismissed. Does that impact her in any way, though? She already was found guilty.
It absolutely does. So she will be appealing her case. My guess is for two separate reasons. One being that this is new evidence, and new evidence allows a defendant to appeal. And based on the ethical violations, her team will find ways to appeal the case as it relates to the prosecutorial misconduct. So now she has a basis to overturn her conviction.
All right, so possibly lots more to come. Well, defense attorney Rachel Fizet, always a pleasure, and thank you so much for being with us tonight to give us some insight into the dismissed case against Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, do you see how everybody's like, what? And so that's what I'm like, what? This is going to be one for the books. That's for sure. Another thing that was interesting is that there was Carrie Morrissey, the one who hid the information or whatever you want to say, or felt like it wasn't relevant. But again, you're supposed to turn it all loose. You're supposed to turn it loose. What was it I was watching? Like I said, I get a lot of help on this, like Lawyer with Peter, and of course Emily D. Baker. I watched Law and Lumber. That was interesting. It's just, that's what I love about all these different, everybody has a different voice. I learned something new from each person. So it's really something. But there was another prosecutor that was with Carrie Morrissey, Erlinda Johnson, and I think, well, she's going to explain it. This is a interview with her and Chris Cuomo. She didn't know about this information until right then. And so I think they had said something about a little sidebar, something went up there, and I think she she quit. Because thank goodness there is somebody that is ethical and has morals. So I'm going to show that little clip of her. It kind of helps to explain how all this happened, or the things leading up to everything. So I'm going to share that because that's a very interesting clip.
So, want to hear how crazy this got? One of the lead prosecutors, not the one who took the stand, Morrissey, the one who gave the opening statement, quit today. Why? Guess what? This almost never happens. This prosecutor wants to be heard enough that she's coming on TV right after this happened. Erlinda Ocampo Johnson joins us now. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity.
Hi, Chris.
First, let me give you a chance to respond what was said about you. Another member of the team said you left the team because you didn't like that this Brady hearing was public.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I left because I learned about this evidence when the public learned about it yesterday, late afternoon. I don't know if you're aware, I actually came on this case kind of late in the game. I came on the case towards the end of April, so I had to get up to speed. I was not involved in the Hannah Gutierrez case at all, and so I was not aware that this individual had taken this ammunition to the sheriff's department and provided it to the officers. I learned all of that yesterday when Mr. Spiro was cross-examining the crime scene technician. So I inquired some more. And this morning, when the motion hearing began, my position was during the lunch hour, before the lunch hour, during the lunch hour, we have an obligation as prosecutors. We have an obligation not only to the people, but to the defendant. And our obligation is to make sure that all the evidence is turned over. We don't get to decide what the defense is going to be. Our job is to ensure transparency and to ensure that the defendant has everything that the prosecution has gathered. What they do with it, that's up to them. Go ahead.
Two things. One, the better minds that I bring on the show, because what do I know, were very impressed by your opening. They felt that you had good command and that you made a very strong case.
Yes, that is very true. And Emily D. Baker said the same. And she was good. She was very good. So there's that too.
Did you believe that Alec Baldwin should be found guilty?
I did. I believed the evidence that we had. I had no idea that there was this other evidence that had not been turned over. That there was some actions that were done during the filming, and there was some recklessness. I did based on the evidence that was available. But my job is not to get a conviction, it's to put the evidence before a jury. That's how I saw my job, is to put all this evidence before the jury and let the jury decide. But once things start, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I want to hear you. But once things what?
So once I learned that this evidence was not turned over, that it was there, it was under a different case number, and my obligations, my ethical obligations as a prosecutor. Now, keep in mind, I've been a prosecutor. I was a state and federal prosecutor for over a decade. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for the last 16 years. So I've been on both sides. And I know what you're required to do. And when this came to light, I think that the best decision would have been for the state to dismiss the case. That's why I resigned.
Really?
Because I believe that case should have been dismissed, and I advocated for that over the lunch hour, and it wasn't. And so when we came back after the lunch hour, I asked to withdraw.
So you wanted the prosecution team to walk away from the case. They said no, so you said, then I'm walking away, and then the judge basically agreed with you. So I have two questions. First one is, so you believe it should be dismissed. Explain to people who don't understand anything about the law.
Like me.
Why did you believe this ammunition was so important for the defense?
So, obviously, you're a lawyer, I think. Brady versus Maryland imposes requirements on the prosecution to turn over evidence. The rules of criminal procedure impose those requirements, those duties as well. So, is the evidence material? That's number one. How timely is disclosure? Without question, this was grossly untimely. Number two, is it material? So, the question is, could the defense have made use of this evidence in their defense? And like I said, we as prosecutors
Keep with me here. There you go.
make that decision what the defense is going to be. It's, can the defense use this, and could it potentially raise some sort of reasonable doubt? And you have to step back. You're not an advocate. As a prosecutor, you're not an advocate. You are there to present the facts and to present the evidence, and your job is, and that's why I took this case on. I agreed to come on board, is because there was a woman who was killed, no question about it. This was tragic, and something happened, and a jury needed to make that decision. And so I believe in the system, and unfortunately, something went horribly wrong here, and I was not aware of it. And when I did become aware of it, my ethical obligations dictated that I advocate for a dismissal.
So let's talk about what went wrong, okay? And you guys at home can Google Brady versus Maryland. It's a 1963 case that basically just goes to things that either could be exculpatory, meaning it's evidence that the defense could use to show it wasn't them, or what they call impeachment, which is evidence that the defense could use to show that one of the witnesses for the prosecution is full of it. Okay, basically that's what Brady was. They call it Brady material. Your co-counsel says you have it wrong. That this ammunition, she knew about it, obviously.
Yeah.
And she says, nah, it didn't have any real value. It had no resemblance to the ammunition that is involved in Alec Baldwin's case. Why would I turn it over?
Well, at the end of the day, a jury could have believed that, but our obligations are to turn all evidence over that could potentially be used by the defense in their defense. It's not for us to decide what is the defense going to be. It's not for us to say, well, his defense was he didn't pull the trigger. So his defense is not.
I got you, but here's the tough question. The suggestion, not from you, from me, is that this may have been in bad faith. Your co-counsel knew about this. She was willing to get on the stand, take the oath, and say, I didn't see any value here. Defense counsel and you echo the same standard. You don't get to decide whether or not it has value. She says, yes, I do. Otherwise, how do I know what to turn over? And I thought this didn't meet the standard. What is the standard, and why do you believe co-counsel got it wrong?
Well, this is a lot to process. Obviously, I learned about this yesterday evening. But just in looking at, so the first time I looked at this evidence was this morning, because it was brought over to court. I think, as you saw, the judge had them open the envelope. And so there were 3 rounds that looked very similar to the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust. Thinking as a defense attorney, I'm thinking the defense could have argued Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was a great armorer. She was completely competent, and there was sabotage. So you have that potential sabotage angle. So then at that point, potentially those 3 rounds do become potentially exculpatory. But the point is, it should have been turned over. It wasn't turned over. And
you think it met the standard? Any way you look at it, it should have been turned over. It was enough for you to step away. I want to ask you about the case now that it's dismissed, because I didn't understand why you guys brought it. I thought it was totally political. I thought if this guy's name wasn't Alec Baldwin, if it was Alec McIntosh, he wouldn't be there. That he pissed off the prosecutors early on by what he was saying, and they wanted to get him. Why am I wrong?
Well, first of all, I was not involved in the charging decisions. I will tell you that based on my evaluation of the evidence that I was privy to and that I saw when I came on board on this case, was that there were numerous clips from the filming on the set that showed that Mr. Baldwin unfortunately did engage in some horseplay with this gun. For example, one individual who was interviewed by the OSHA investigators and testified or gave an interview that there was a time that he allowed Mr. Baldwin to use him kind of as a target to shoot blanks at him, at his person. And obviously these are real guns. You don't do that with real guns. So there's
on a movie set? But isn't that exactly what they do on a movie set?
Well, no, you don't use another person as a target, as a human target. So that could potentially be reckless. And so, he wasn't charged with intentional homicide. There's no question, for me, there's no question Mr. Baldwin did not intend to do this. But the question is, was there wanton and recklessness? And so that's why I did believe in the case. I had no idea that this other evidence had not been turned over.
That is very clear, and I told the audience, this is not about you. That's a separate prosecutor who seemed to know about it. We've showed her on screen. Her name is Morrissey. It is not you. I just want to ask you, I have two more questions. The first one is, I still don't buy it. I don't understand how on a movie set you should have a reasonable expectation that you might have live ammo in the weapon. Well, why? Why would you have that as a reasonable expectation?
Because remember, there are the SAG guidelines, there's safety bulletins that dictate, even if you're an actor, even if you're on a movie set, you treat a real firearm as though it's always loaded, never point it at another person, and don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Those are cardinal firearm handling safety rules. So yes, did I believe that there was some inappropriate behavior with regard to handling this gun? I do. It's unfortunate that things went the way they went, but the fact of the matter is that we as prosecutors have very, very serious and high ethical obligations that when something comes to our attention, evidence comes to us, or we become aware of evidence, you turn it over. You don't decide.
Are you a big Alec Baldwin fan? Are you a big Alec Baldwin fan?
I actually do. I am a fan. I wouldn't say a big fan. I never saw him as Alec Baldwin, the actor. To me, this is a case, someone died. This was a tragic case. Someone was killed. And she was killed with a live bullet. She was killed because someone also pointed a gun at her. I never had. For me, it was not about Alec Baldwin, the actor. This is not about politics. For me, it was about putting forth the facts before a jury.
Last thing for you, and again, really, thank you for coming on, Ms. Johnson. Really appreciate it. You ooze authenticity to me, and we are very hungry for it right now when it comes to trusting our institutions.
Isn't that the truth?
So I appreciate what you did, but I'm also worried for you now. Are you worried that, the right move was for you to just kind of sit there and let the judge make the ruling, and then if they made the wrong ruling, you could have walked away, but now you walked away and you may be a target in the community or by other prosecutors for going bad on your team?
Well, no, I walked away before the judge made the ruling. I asked you.
I know, should you have waited?
No, absolutely not. I have ethical obligations. And personally, I have moral obligations. And my ethical obligation and my moral obligations really are not that different. And so when I see that something isn't right, and when I see that the law isn't followed, I don't care who you are, where you are, you make the right decision. And for me, the right decision was to walk up to the judge and ask to be allowed to withdraw before that circus of a hearing got underway.
Isn't that the truth?
Do you think that she decided the way she did because of you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that...
I gotta tell you. Go ahead, make your point.
I said I think it's because it met the legal standard.
I gotta tell you, Erlinda Ocampo Johnson, this is a very refreshing conversation. It has nothing
Boy,
to
is
do with
it.
the outcome of the case. I still don't get the case, but I respect your argument on it. And I really respect what you did and your rationale for doing it. This was a brave thing to do. And I have tremendous respect for you. And if there's anything we can do down the road to help, if this gets a little ugly because people don't like what you did, we're a call away if we can help in any way. But thank you for rationalizing your behavior the way you did.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Wow. I don't know. To me, that was huge. It would have been so easy for her to just go along with everything, but she was like, let's face it, we know. I mean, if those of us who have a conscience, when your gut says, this isn't right. I mean, seriously, this was really important. I mean, think about it if it was you or your loved one on trial. Regardless of what happened, wouldn't you want to make sure they had a fair trial? It's not about like if we think, oh, Alec did it, blah, 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 and she had every reason to, she could have just kept quiet and been fine, but thank goodness. Thank goodness. I mean, the judge said that this was, and why? I wonder why Carrie Morrison didn't think it was important, because I think if she had turned over, this is just my opinion, I don't know, if she had turned over the evidence like she was supposed to, there was a good chance with a jury he would have been convicted, and everybody, well, not everybody, some would have felt like justice had been served. I'm still, not sure about it, but that, I don't understand why she did that. But basically what it came down to, the judge said it was a violation against Alec Baldwin's rights. Even though Ms. Johnson thought he was definitely guilty, she did the right thing. I guess we all would wish... Oh, hush, Chris. Anyhow, sorry I had to leave you like that. But yeah, that's just, that's why I just couldn't get it out of my system until I made a video of it, no matter how bad or good it is. But that's it, I think it's fascinating. And again, the victim. I'm thinking about the victim. All right, now we're going to get into it. Okay, now we're going to start to where things get really, exciting. I mean, you don't know at the time, but as things start to unfold, you can even sense the energy in the air, like something's going down. So let me point out, sometimes it's good to see it live like I did, but like having seen it, it's easier for me. Watched it live, but then now viewing it again to give you the best information that I received. It's kind of good to be able to see it because it's easier for me to break down the people. So here's the prosecutor right there. And I believe she was a prosecutor in Hannah's trial. Carrie Morrissey. And let me tell you, she has balls of steel. She's got no shame. Somebody who's willing to put themselves on the stand and testify. Don't know why. I think she could be good in her own right. I mean, you do want somebody who's going to fight for you, but you want them to fight for you honestly. So that's going to be one of the ones to look at. This one, the lead detective, you're going to see her briefly on the stand, but enough to understand that she was part of it. And she is like the lead investigator, the lead detective, Hancock. But I think they call her Corporal Hancock, but whatever, neither here nor there. She's the lead detective. And you're going to see pretty soon somebody who's also very much a part of this is Marissa Popple. She is the crime scene tech, which she will tell this is Alec Baldwin's, I'm saying because his name is Alec, main attorney, lead attorney, whatever you call him. His name, Alex Spiro, or Spiro. No, I think it's Spiro. And the judge, just let me tell you, again, her name is Mary Marlowe Summer. Look, she shows no expression. She's kind of scary, really. I mean, like you see Judge Doro, she's very warm. And hey, you don't have to be a good judge. You don't have to be warm and fuzzy to be a good judge. And then if you watch the Hannah Payne trial, the judge there was just lovely. She had a beautiful voice. She was just soft and gentle. I mean, but still a good judge. But this one, she doesn't ever crack a smile. I mean, and I saw where she got down on both of the attorneys. I mean, she just, but you know what? I have to say I liked her because she was fair. And you're going to see her, I don't know if they'll show it here, but she actually gets them to bring the evidence that nobody else got to see. And she puts on gloves and examines it. She asks questions. Now, mind you, the jury isn't here during this time. They've been excused. Of course, later she has to dismiss them from the day. But, she gets on the gloves, comes down, and starts examining all the ammo that no one else got to see. And, asking her own questions. And what's funny is, think about it, if Daryl Brooks was in there, you know what he would say. Remember when Judge Doro would ask questions and he'd go, you're practicing law from the bench. Could you imagine Daryl? We'll just watch this judge, you'll see. I mean, if Daryl said that to her, I kind of wish he were her judge. But Judge Doro, she got him where we needed him to be. But it's very interesting. Okay, so let's do this. So I think the jury is going to lunch not knowing that probably they're not going to come back for the rest of that day or ever. But I wanted to kind of point out those key players there. Make sure I have the sound pretty good here. And that one, she talks too much, this one right here. Sometimes she just needs to shut up. Less is more sometimes.
All right, you're excused. You can move over. And this thing is a battery and counsel approach.
Yeah.
You and detective, you said the detective.
Okay, now this one, the only reason I know it's different is because the attorney for Alec Baldwin, Alex Spiro, has on a different tie. So I think this might have been the day before or something, because I think the jury is present just for this brief questioning of who you'll see is Popple. Crime scene tech Marissa Popple. But I'll help guide you through this.
Hancock, this is taking a long time. We really need to spot that.
Objection relevance? What's relevant? What's relevant? Does it have any more tendency to?
Sure.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay. Did you and Detective Hancock start joking around that it was going to take too long to search every box?
I don't recall that.
Do you deny it?
No.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times in this search where you pick up a box and you just shake the whole box, right?
I don't recall that.
Can we play that video?
I'm confused. Is he refreshing or is he impeaching?
It doesn't matter. It's just a video. It's not a statement.
No, it does matter because she said she doesn't recall.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you deny, in parts of your search, just picking up a box and shaking it to see if it shook or not? Do you deny that?
No.
And so, but if you shook an entire box to see if it had a rattle in it, you wouldn't be able to be sure whether or not every single live round, it was all live rounds or a commingled group, correct?
Correct.
In fact, that's the entire basis of the case of what you believe the armorer to have done. Commingled, live, and dummies, right?
Yes.
And yet at the search being conducted to find the source of the lethal round, law enforcement is doing the very same thing that you're complaining about the armorer doing on the set, right?
Yes.
And when you left that search, you are not, as you sit here, sure you got every live round, are you?
No.
And actually, if you look at the boxes inside of that location, you didn't even search half of them. Did you?
I don't recall.
Don't recall.
So
You know what that
why
means?
on direct examination, if you do not recall, did the prosecutor ask you, and you tell this jury, that you were confirming that you searched and found every single live round? Why did you testify to that?
I found what I believe to be all the live rounds at the warehouse.
But that's not what you said. What you said was that you found every live round, right?
I don't recall the exact words that I stated.
Well, you certainly said that you searched every single box just 10 minutes ago in front of this jury, right?
I believe that a reasonable search was conducted of the warehouse.
An investigator, I understand you were prepped before you testified.
Okay, you notice how he called her investigator there? Now, this is one thing that Emily D. Baker pointed out. So right now, she's more restrained because she's in front of the jury. Now, you're going to see her when the jury isn't in the room, and she gets a lot more, how do I want to say, sassy, salty, mouthy with Spyro here. And Emily made a good point, great point. She says, I wonder if she would have been that way with the jury present, because you'll see how her demeanor will change. I mean, at this point, this is when I think they know they have discovered this evidence that was filed separate and not brought in. So it only gets better from here.
Today, correct?
I spoke with the prosecution before I testified yesterday.
Okay. And the jury heard something about pre-trial interviews, where you're interviewed and the defense can be there to watch you be interviewed, right?
Yes.
But every time you talk to the prosecutors, defense is not there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, the vast majority of times you speak to the prosecutors, the defense is not there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you and I had never met before today, or yesterday, I guess, correct?
Yes.
Interesting.
So, you just said, when you originally said that you searched every box, okay, that itself is not accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now what you're saying is that you did a reasonable search, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing that the search warrant asked you to take was the cameras and the camera equipment, the surveillance footage from PDQ, right?
I don't recall that.
Okay, I'm going to pass up the warrant to refresh your recollection. Well, do you recall that there was camera equipment there?
There was lots of camera equipment inside of the warehouse.
In fact, you remember Seth Kenny showed you the camera equipment, right?
I don't recall exactly.
Okay, I'm just going to mark this as defense C and just approach just quickly.
if you all want, but I'm going to require that the state, in fact, I'm going to order that the state by 11:30 this morning produce the supplemental report, the file itself, and anything in it, and also the rounds.
May I respond?
I'm not finished.
Okay.
You need to pipe down there.
That Ms. Popple took from Mr. Teskey.
I want the court to understand that last night the defense reached out to Ms. Popple.
Okay, just to interrupt. Now, okay, you saw him in the yellow tie, right? That was like the day before. This is day 3 when this all ends up getting, this trial leading up to getting dismissed. So, and it's just amazing to me how, I mean, actually, when she gets on stand, even her demeanor doesn't change. She's just the same. She's blah, 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 blah. But the judge, you can see the judge is pissed. So this is now, at that moment, the jury was present. Now, the jury is not there. And so, the rest of this, I believe, will be without the jury, just so you understand. Okay, here we go.
And said, we want you to bring the rounds to court tomorrow. And she got their message, and then they reached out to her again and said, no, never mind. We don't want you to bring the rounds to court tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Morrissey. I don't, okay, where are they?
They're here. I'll go get her.
All right.
Yeah, she's like, eh.
Well, actually, I want testimony from Ms. Popple on how she retrieved those. So I don't need the box, tell her. I need Popple.
She is, look at her. She needs Popple. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of light here. I'm trying to fix that. I'm really anxious to get out this video, but I'm always slower than most because I gotta do my research. I don't know if that helped or not, but this is like, there's Baldwin's wife. And I know people are starting to think, what's going on? Okay, here comes Popple. I still have a little light there, but that's all
I
right.
have tendered the supplemental report to the defense.
Please raise your right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Have a seat. Talking to the microphone. I would like to read the report. May I see the report?
Yes.
I bet by right now, Popple wants to crap her pants. What do you bet? Probably now I'm going to go back and watch Hannah's trial, although, you know, this information might impact her sentence. I guess we'll find out. I think the reason why I'm so excited to share this is because it's like, this is an example of how...
Where is this box of evidence?
Of how your trial would want to be if you were the one, the accused. Now, unfortunately, most all of us cannot afford the best attorneys like Alec Baldwin. If that had been the case, would the attorney have still been able to caught it? Would they have, been able to catch it or figure it out? It's not to say, and that's what's hard. But having said that, whatever you think about Alec Baldwin, again, this is not about what he did or didn't do and what he would have been found guilty or not guilty of. It's about the prosecutor, Morrissey, holding back evidence, which again violated his constitutional rights. So that's the problem. So, like they say, everyone's entitled to a fair trial. And so that's just, I don't know, it blows my mind.
I'd like to see it. Do you need to do it, Martine? I need the box of evidence.
I'm telling you, I don't know if you can feel it here, but watching it live, you could just feel, even not being there, being in the courtroom, you could feel the energy going, whoa, look at Popple. Okay, see, at that point, that attorney is still there, Erlinda Johnson, who later ends up leaving once she realizes, because, well, you remember her interview with Chris Cuomo. So there, at some point, you're going to notice she's not there. I wonder if that note she passed over is, "Are you kidding me, bitch? You held this information back?" No, probably not.
You all inspected this? Well, how do we want to do it? I want to look at it. Well, do you want me to ask the questions first? I have some questions of this witness.
Says whatever you want, Your Honor.
Can I open this, Martine?
The judge herself is putting on the gloves and looking at it herself.
Anywhere? Like not in the middle, but up at the top? Oh. Humor's fine. Maybe you need gloves too. Do you have gloves? Can you get some additional? So anywhere, I can just cut into it. Okay.
There should be there's a separate
All right.
area.
I'm going to have you. This is unusual, but if you all don't mind, and if there's any objection, I'm going to have her step down, and when I ask her a question about which is which, she will put it out. Is that all right with everybody?
However you want to do it.
Okay, so I just need you to have some gloves. And we're going to go right there.
And keep in mind, the jury is not present during this. This probably would not happen like this, but it's just, this is a lot of firsts. You don't see this happen often. The judge putting on the gloves, getting down into the evidence. Crazy stuff, guys.
And you all can approach too, so you don't have to, I don't want you asking questions yet, but I do, can you move that? All right, please pull out the 3 Starline brass 45 bolts. Just put the bolt. Can you do it, Brady? Yeah, do it.
Morning again. I'm just going to pass the witness up because we're not fully set up. The cop.
I think maybe that's the extent of the looking, and he's going to ask. I think he's going to ask. I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But I love it that he leaves the one glove on. It's a good effect, you know. It's like, I'm a doctor too. No. Okay, here we go.
Of the spent shell casing that is recovered on the scene of rough. And you would agree with me, right, that it's the same as the bottom of the bullets that you just provided to the court?
Yes, it's Starline brass 45 Colt with a silver primer.
So when I asked you yesterday, didn't he turn in ammunition that matched the ammunition that killed Ms. Hutchins? It's true that he did, correct?
And I did not recall at that time.
I understand that that's your position, but that's what in fact happened. Would you agree?
I would not use the word match without there being an additional analysis.
Well, who got to decide whether there would be additional analysis?
That was not myself.
It wasn't the defense, though, right? We didn't know about it.
I don't know what you were aware of.
Okay. Well, you know that we came to have an evidence viewing where we asked to see every single round that could be related to the Russ said. And this was hidden.
This was not hidden.
This was not hidden?
This was under a case number. It was documented. I was instructed to document it under this case number.
Okay, so in this case that's under the Rust investigation case number, you would agree with me there's hundreds of things that you inventoried, right?
Yes.
There are hundreds of police reports that all relate to the same case number, right?
Yes.
The one thing that seems to have been put under a different case number is just this one discovery of the actual ammunition that matches the ammunition from the set of Rust.
This was put under a doc information of someone coming in claiming to have rounds that were not utilized in a case.
Okay, well, let's examine that for a second. When Seth Kenny comes into the precinct and he gives you ammunition, you vouchered it, right?
I was instructed to collect the ammunition from Seth Kenny.
Well, let me take a step back for a second just to make something clear. Investigator Popple, you're following orders, right, when you're doing these things, correct?
Can you please stop referring to me as investigator because it's creating a misnomer?
Okay, well, how would you? I apologize.
I'm a crime scene technician. I'm not an investigator.
Okay, I'm only doing that because it's shorter than crime scene technician.
CST works.
Ooh, you see how sassy and salty and mouth. Look at everybody. Because she knows. So she's feeling defensive. Yeah, she didn't correct him in front of the jury. But she's going to do it now.
Okay, and obviously, and I know it's obvious, but I want to make sure it's in the record, we were not ever shown that, correct?
Well, I believe that you guys had a secondary evidentiary.
Oh, okay. There's a different voice. So I think now they switched over and they have that detective, the lead detective Hancock. And so, you can tell by her, she looks really rattled. And just keep your eye on that attorney there. Just keep watching her as this continues on. Here we go.
Meeting with the sheriff's office that was canceled the day before the meeting was supposed to happen.
She's going, nope, nope, nope.
Or an evidence showing, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, we were able to come for some showings and not others. The reality is when we came for showings, you never showed us this evidence, correct?
I don't know if I can agree with you there, because even on the first day that I was present at the evidence hearing, we didn't get through all the evidence that they wanted to see that day.
I don't have any more questions.
Let me ask you something. If Ms.
Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good. I have to admit, I do kind of like that dramatic way that Baldwin's attorney, Sparrow, threw up his hands like, "Phew, I'm done with you." Because I think he knows. Look at their looks. They're like, oh, we got them good. Okay, let's see what the judge has to ask. Maybe, I don't
Ms.
know.
Popple said it was not in the evidence viewing. Would you disagree with her?
If this ammunition, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
If what Troy Teskey dropped off was not in the evidence viewing, because I can get the testimony, but they had a narrow. If Ms. Popple said it was not part of the evidence viewing, that you did not gather it for the evidence viewing, would you disagree with her?
I believe that we were sent a list of what they wanted to see. And then, Your Honor, the first day that we had done an evidence showing, we didn't get through everything.
That's not what I asked you.
And then, yeah, I understand what I'm trying to, then we had another day.
Pardon me?
We had a second day that was set up to continue.
I asked you if you would disagree that Ms. Popple said that it was not included in the evidence viewing. Not whether you got to it or whatever, but whether when they said we want evidence viewing, Ms. Popple said it was not part of the evidence viewing.
I don't know if it was or wasn't.
Would you disagree with her is what I'm asking.
Look at his face.
I really don't know how to answer that.
Thank you.
Oh, this is
Redirect?
bad.
I can't provide the video until she logs into this system. Mr.
You know, I don't even think the video is relevant. She did not view it until today, so you can look at it. But do you have any cross-exam for her?
I just need to develop my records, so I need to get the video in.
You can get the video in, okay? Are you going to get it in through her? Because I said it should come in from the person that wore the body
I
camera.
agree with you. He's here.
Okay, well, fine. So, do you have any cross-examination for her?
I do.
Oh, God. She's never at a loss for words.
Corporal, as you sit here today, do you have any reason to believe that the ammunition that was provided by Mr. Teskey came from the set of Rust?
No.
Look at him. He's like, what?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you say that there were discussions and the decision was made by all of you to put that ammo in a separate file, right? Is that correct? You said that?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Ms. Morrissey part of that discussion?
Yes.
Ooh.
Let me give this an offer of proof, and if Mr. Spyro wants me to, I'll testify under oath.
You want it?
Sure, absolutely, I'm happy to.
She has no shame. Look at that other attorney's going,
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 16. How do you know that's related to the set of Rust?
Because it was collected during a search.
Did it come from the scene?
Yes, I believe that one did come from the church. Or
State's
around.
Exhibit 29. How do you know that's related to the set of Rust?
That was the casing that Marissa collected.
State's Exhibit 10. How do you know that's related to the set of Rust?
Collected.
All of these photographs and all of the items that are in evidence, how do you know they're related to the set of Rust?
Because we got them from Rust. Or during the investigation or some part of the investigation.
How do you know these rounds were in any way related to the set of Rust?
I don't.
Okay. Let's bring in Randall.
I know this is totally off topic, but I can't stop looking at those lips. Those surely can't be her own lips. Can they? I'm thinking not. Okay. Very random, I know.
If that's his...
Are you finished?
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Witness's excuse.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's like, let me get out of here. I better start applying for another job. Look at the judge.
Your
She
next
is
witness?
livid. This is the fellow the officer that had the body cam on when
Basic judge razor I have.
the person turned in the
Under penalty of law that the
evidence.
testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have a seat. Talk into the microphone.
State your name, sir.
It's Lieutenant Brian Brandel
How are you currently employed?
at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office.
And do you know why you're here to testify today?
Yes,
Were you present when a gentleman by the name of Troy Teskey brought ammunition into the sheriff's department?
yes, I was.
And at the time, were you running your body-worn camera?
Yes, I did.
And has that now been provided to me?
Yes,
Now, just so that we're clear, when you ran your body-worn camera, how did you preserve that video?
it is uploaded into a WatchGuard cloud.
And when you upload them to a WatchGuard cloud, do you link them to a case number?
Yes, they can be linked to a case number.
Was this video linked to a case number?
I don't recall. I'd have to look at the video, but I believe so.
Okay, and we have the video. I'm trying to... It's transferring over there? Okay, great.
Look at that look. Wouldn't you love to be inside her head right now?
Have you watched the video today?
Yes.
Did you watch it with me?
No, I did not.
I have no idea where it is now, so...
Well, we're going to have to mark it before we publish it.
Do you want me to put it on a flash drive for the court and mark it that way?
Move it into evidence.
Sure, I'm working on pulling it up.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know the date that this was recorded?
I believe it was March 6th, 2024.
Would this be State's Exhibit 2?
I don't know.
I think it is. I'm going to show you what I'm going to mark as State's Exhibit 2. Can we display it?
Yeah. Well, you're publishing it, and but go ahead. I mean,
I'm not sure what...
All right.
Do you want to see the video or no?
Okay, now they're going to play the body cam. The day when the
Is there a reason that we don't have volume?
It does have a pre-record that's just audio, and at the time when I initiate the activation, then it has audio. And to be correct, I was in the hallway headed towards that area.
No.
where it's
Why don't we have audio? Does it take 30 seconds for the audio to come on?
It's when I activate it. So I believe it is set to a 30-second pre-video, and then once I activate the camera, the audio will
It
kick
comes
on.
on, okay.
Yes.
I've got some evidence. You need to do this out here? Because I should probably write out something to go with this. Like a chain of custody statement. Well, we have a chain of custody there. So, yeah, come with me and we'll go. So that's my wife. Hi, that's
Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir. Where was Marissa? Right back to her area? There he is.
Oops. And there is Popo, right in the middle of it.
Wherever you want to go to get the evidence. Can go to the interview, it's fine. Sure, I can fill out a statement or something, witness statement. What it was, when I'm a witness, I was called here as a witness to the Russ trial, and I live in Arizona, so it's a long way.
Right.
And I wanted to. At the last minute, he said, okay, I want you to testify. I said, let's bring some evidence. And then they didn't want the evidence.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to walk around with this evidence forever.
That's fair. But you guys need to know.
Yeah, I don't care what you do, I just don't want to have it.
That's okay.
And they're 45 cartridges. Like,
They're from the set?
No.
Okay.
No. You want to know the details?
Could you hear what the gentleman said?
Yes.
Was he asked if they were from the set?
Yes.
What was his response?
No.
Or do you want me to
Well,
Oh,
write it down?
let me start with, what is your name, sir?
Troy. Well, that's a great start.
Troy what?
Troy Teskey. I've got all kinds of identification. You should see it on my
And where are you getting called by?
retired police officer.
Like by the defense? Defense, okay. Yeah. But they didn't end up using it. Okay.
Here's my police ID. And then I'm also a judge. You need to see that.
She said he's a retired police officer and a judge.
Okay, so they're gonna have you bring 45 rounds?
Yeah, and at the last minute,
They talked to
the
her,
defense.
him on the phone. He was good, he said that they're gonna have somebody pick it up from Arizona, which they never did. Okay, so he brought it out here just in case.
I think this is my story.
Okay, but get it out. Don't want it anymore.
Sir, do you recall this conversation?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when Mr. Teskey is talking about being called as a witness in the Gutierrez trial, do you recall which side he was being called by?
I only learned that when he identified that.
What side?
On the defense side.
And when he said that he brought ammunition, but they didn't want to use it, was he referring to the prosecution or the defense?
Right. Is there any basis to know that?
If he doesn't, I'm assuming he'll tell me.
But it's the defense.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, I want to go.
They told me the defense attorney said, hey, why don't you bring those rounds? And I thought, and 2 times, Hancock and then Morrissey.
You hear that? Hear the names they called Hancock and Morrissey.
Hancock first said way back on November 5th, and November 5th of 2021, which was a week after the shooting. Seth Kinney called me, you know Seth? Everybody seems to know Seth here. But, Seth, he was a friend of mine. And Seth Kinney called me from Hancock's office. She was a detective at the time. And he said, you're on the record? I want to know what's going on with you. Because I have these rounds from It's the same batch. They came from Joe Swanson.
Okay.
Know him too?
Yeah, I know of him.
Everybody.
I
awesome.
dealt with this case a lot.
Okay, did you hear that? And I don't think you see it here, but they so many names to remember, and this is so new to me. Popple, she just said, "Oh yeah, I've worked on this case a lot," and I don't think you see it here, but at some point, Spyro, Baldwin's attorney, says, "Yes, you act like you knew everything about it." So there you go.
Perfect person to what's your first name?
Marissa.
Marissa
Yeah,
Popple.
I apologize. I'm the crime scene technician.
Crime scene technician.
I better jot that down. So when I have some good notes on it. So when
Perfect person to give it to.
my big concern was having. They said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I have these rounds. I have a batch, a whole bunch of rounds."
Okay.
Or a bunch. And then they. You probably don't want me to send you the whole batch. You want me to just pull something out and send you a picture. So I took a picture with my phone, sent it to Seth, and he was in the office with Hancock. And they looked at it, and Seth said, "Yeah, this is evidence from the accidental shooting." The accident.
And when you say they're from the same batch of
Yes.
live rounds?
Yes.
Okay.
It's if you know the case, Bell Reed had a whole bunch of live rounds.
Yes.
And Seth and Fell went to Yellowstone 1884, 1883, and he was teaching people how to shoot with these rounds.
Right.
Then they left there and they went to Denver from Arizona, and then they came back to another set, which was
Sir, why does your video end there?
Because I walked out of the interview and was attempting to, or I did contact Detective Hancock to see who this individual was and why he was there turning in evidence like he called it.
Okay. Did you know what it was evidence of?
He mentioned that it was tied to the Rust case.
Well, did he say in the video that it was not from the set of Rust?
No,
You didn't hear him say that?
I don't recall him saying that.
Yeah, I stopped it and I asked you what he said. Do you remember giving that testimony?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
So the gentleman said on the video it was not from the set of Rust.
Yes.
Okay. And you called Corporal Hancock, right?
Correct.
And do you recall the conversation you had with her?
Yes, I asked her, an individual's here, gave her the name. I said he claims that he has evidence. How do you want me to proceed turning it in and documenting it? Or if she was available to come over and interview him. And at that time, you guys were still involved in the Hannah Reed case. So she was unavailable. And she asked that it be documented. And she would have to do further investigation onto it and interviews.
Okay. I'll pass the witness. I don't know if you have any questions.
All right, Ms. Morrissey voluntarily calling herself as a witness without any requirement by the court to do so, or Mr. Spyro asking her to. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Go ahead.
During my investigation of this case and my review of the evidence in this case, I came to understand that there was a large batch of live ammunition that was in the possession of Thel Reed, Hannah Gutierrez's father. I also understood from all of the evidence and testimony that a portion of that batch of ammunition that belonged to Thel Reed was taken by Thel Reed and Seth Kinney to the 1883 Cowboy Training Camp. When that was over, leftover ammunition was taken back to PDQ props. Seth Kinney took some of the ammunition from that container that he had brought back from Texas and turned it into the sheriff's department. And it appeared to me that he did it to try to exonerate himself. They took it from Mr. Kinney and they tagged it into evidence under the Rust case. Law enforcement then executed a search warrant at PDQ Props and they took the entire container. And I will say that I do agree, as I recall, although I don't have it in front of me, I do agree that the search warrant didn't really require law enforcement to take everything, but it was my understanding that Mr. Kinney gave them everything so that they would have it and could tag it into evidence. Portions of that ammunition were then sent to the FBI for testing so that they could be compared to the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust. The FBI testing demonstrated that the live rounds that were taken from PDQ Props that were originally in Texas did not match the live rounds on the set of Rust. And that's testimony that we heard during the Gutierrez trial. So what ended up happening was Mr. Bowles, Ms. Gutierrez's lawyer, put Mr. Teskey on a witness list and was intending to call him as a witness to the Gutierrez trial. I conducted a pretrial interview of Mr. Teskey, and I want to back up. I did at this point have some understanding that Mr. Teskey had had contact with law enforcement regarding these rounds that he still had in Arizona. So these are rounds that never left Arizona. They were always in the possession of Thel Reed and Troy Teskey. They never went to Texas. They never came to New Mexico. That's what all of the evidence indicated. So I understood that Detective Hancock had communication with Mr. Teskey about trying to get those rounds, and Detective Hancock was unable to get those rounds from Mr. Teskey. I did not find that particularly concerning because those rounds had never left Arizona. The filming of Rust was in the state of New Mexico. And the rounds that were taken from PDQ went from Arizona to Texas to Albuquerque. So ammunition that is in the state of Arizona that has never left Arizona did not strike me that it had significant evidentiary value. Then, and I will say, I believe I actually saw a photo of it. At that point in time, I was able to look at the ammunition myself, and it was visibly dissimilar than the rounds from the set of Rust. We then cut to November of 2023. Mr. Bowles has put Mr. Teskey on a witness list for the Hannah Gutierrez case. We conducted a pretrial interview with Mr. Teskey on November 2nd of 2023. At that point in time, he brought up that he was still in possession of these live rounds that were Thel Reed's live rounds that had never left the state of Arizona. I then, when he started, I think he indicated during the pretrial interview that they were from the same batch that was sourced from Joe Swanson. And I then said, we should get those from you. I had a conversation with Detective Hancock after that pretrial interview about how we could get the rounds from Mr. Teskey, and we were trying to figure out if we could send a local law enforcement agency to pick them up. I was then decided that I needed to figure out if that was necessary, since they had never left Arizona, and up to that point, it was my impression that they did not match the live rounds from the set of Rust. I then, as I recall, reached out to Mr. Bowles. He and I had a conversation about whether or not the rounds should be tested by the FBI. And I was still trying to figure out if I could get the rounds from Arizona to New Mexico. So I asked Mr. Bowles to please send me a photograph of the rounds from Troy Teskey so that I could see with my eyes whether they were even remotely similar. If they were similar, I could go through the steps of obtaining the ammunition, connecting probably with local law enforcement, having a local law enforcement agency go to Mr. Teskey's residence and collect them. I didn't want to do that if they didn't look anything like the rounds from the set of Rust, because all 6 rounds from the set of Rust are identical to each other. So when I had this conversation with Mr. Bowles, he provided me the photograph that I showed this morning, and this is it was my understanding that this was a photograph from Troy Teskey. So Troy and I don't communicate. He's a defense witness. I can't communicate with a defense witness. So Mr. Bowles, as I recall, texted me this photo, and this is a photo that Mr. Teskey took at my request so that I could determine whether this ammunition was related in any way to the set of Rust, because it never left the state of Arizona. So if it never left the state of Arizona, the only way that it is relevant to the Rust investigation is if it has any similarity to the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust, because we were, at that point, trying to figure out the source of the live rounds. When I received this photograph from Mr. Bowles, I could immediately tell that these are very dissimilar from the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust.
We will continue listening to her, but I'm thinking all of this. I'm thinking, from what I've heard, listening to other channels and lawyers speak about it, that it doesn't matter whether she thought it was. You're supposed to turn over every bit of evidence, no matter what you think. So I think she definitely just took it into her own hands and, very, very, very smarmy, very sleazy.
Have brass primers. So this is what was presented to the as the rounds that were in Mr. Teskey's possession. They have brass primers and not silver primers. One of them, the one on the left, appears to be a Starline brass casing, but they have truncated cone projectiles. We had seen ammunition that looked exactly like this, not exactly, but very, very similar, and that ammunition was the ammunition that was collected from the Sheriff's Department and went to the FBI for testing and was determined not to be similar in any way to the live rounds on the set of Rust. So when I saw this photograph, I could see that it was not at all similar to the live rounds on the set of Rust. And I decided not to take any steps to collect this ammunition because it was in Arizona, had never come to New Mexico, and didn't match the live rounds on the set of Rust. So what ends up happening is Mr. Teskey is called to New Mexico by Mr. Bowles to testify at the Gutierrez trial. And you can hear on the video that the court heard Mr. Teskey say, the defense attorney, that's not me, asked him to bring samples of that ammunition. According to Mr. Teskey, he brought the samples of the ammunition, showed them to the defense attorney, and the defense attorney said, I don't want those. I'm not going to use those. And by the way, I'm not going to call you as a witness. So Mr. Teskey sat in court during the trial, and then at some point contacted the deputies downstairs and said, I have this ammunition. So he tried to give it to the defense attorney, who's the person who asked him to bring it. The defense attorney said no. And he then tried to get a hold of Detective Hancock, who was not available because she was with me. So then he ends up going to the sheriff's department, and he leaves the ammunition at the sheriff's department. I was contacted, I don't think it was the same day, but I'm not 100% sure. It's possible that it was, by Detective Hancock, and she indicated that Troy Teskey had dropped off ammunition at the sheriff's department. Because I had already asked for a photograph of it, I believed that that ammunition was going to look like the photograph that Mr. Bowles had sent me. Corporal Hancock indicated that she was going to tag them into evidence, and she was going to create what she called a doc report. And I said, great, do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was not aware at that point in time that a doc report would not have the same case number as Rust. I was not aware at that point in time that it would not be linked to the Rust case number. I understood that he had dropped off ammunition that I believed to not look similar to the ammunition from the set of Rust. And I had no idea that it wasn't going to have the same case number.
Do we believe that? I do not believe that. That's a shame right there.
I want to show the court, though.
Please, must you?
When Mr. Teskey showed up to testify with the ammunition that Mr. Bowles told him to bring to the state of New Mexico, he was not called as a witness. And Mr. Bowles said, I'm not taking that ammunition from you. That's why. Because these are photographs from Hannah Gutierrez's cell phone extraction, and they show spot-on match for the live rounds found on the set of Rust. This is clearly the reason that Mr. Bowles said, you and your ammunition better get out of here, because it would not have hurt the case, the state's case against Hannah Gutierrez. It would have been the best evidence I could have hoped for. These look exactly like the ammunition, the actual ammunition that we have in evidence, and they do look like the 3 rounds that are in that envelope. So when Mr. Teskey couldn't get Mr. Bowles to take them because they were the best evidence against his client, he took them over to the sheriff's department. And when he dropped them at the sheriff's department, I was told that there was going to be a report. There was a report. I assumed they looked like these, and Detective Hancock indicated to me that because he dropped them off and he didn't wait for her, she was then going to
Look at his
try to
face.
follow up with him, take a statement from him, so that we could get some idea where they came from, what the relevance was, if there was any relevance at all. And he never returned her phone calls. And that's all of the information that I can give the court, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
She's so willing, isn't she? Dang. Look at him. He goes, look at that. It's like, hey, bitch. I got you by the gonads.
May I ask a few questions on it? When you took over this case, the investigator handling the case, Mr. Schilling, left the case, correct?
At my request, yes.
The paralegal that was handling this case with you left the case, Mr. Tatt.
At my request, yes.
Well, the first prosecutor that was working with you on this case, you selected, correct?
I did.
And he resigned too?
I wouldn't say that he resigned, no.
Okay. He didn't stay on the case for the Alec Baldwin trial, correct?
No, and he indicated that that was because he represented a labor union that's a national labor union, and he was not expecting the trial to be set so quickly. He wasn't expecting it to be set in July. So when he realized that the trial was going to be set in July, he was going to be in collective bargaining agreements for his national labor union, and he wasn't going to be able to have enough time.
Erlinda Johnson, the next prosecutor selected, resigned from the case today,
She did.
based in part on the conduct we're here discussing, correct?
I believe that Ms. Johnson Ms. Johnson didn't want their, my understanding is that she didn't agree with the decision to have a public hearing.
And we know that that's a lie too, because we just saw her interview with Chris Cuomo. You lying bitch.
On July 1st in this matter, you served a certificate of compliance with 5501, correct?
I did.
And you've never turned over the report or any of the evidence that we're talking about here at this hearing, correct?
Let's take it one at a time.
Okay, sure.
I did not turn over the report. I didn't have a copy of the report. The rounds that were left at the Sheriff's Department by Troy Teskey, I have absolutely no reason to believe that they are relevant to the incident that took place on the set of Rust. These are rounds that were in the possession of Bell Reed of the state of Arizona.
You also did not allow the defense to view that evidence at any point during our request to review evidence in this case?
I had never seen it, and I didn't realize that it wasn't under the same case number because I'm not a law enforcement officer and I don't work at the Sheriff's Department. But you are right.
And you concede that they are Starline Brass Silver 45, right?
I can. And this is the best evidence against Hannah Gutierrez.
Yeah, you've said that a couple of times. Any favorable evidence you understand as a prosecutor has to be turned over to the defense, correct?
I do.
Any evidence that could be used as a defense to potentially be favorable has to be turned over to the defense.
Absolutely.
So the third Hague report that never got turned over to the defense, you understand that that's Brady evidence?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you also failed to turn that over in this case as well, correct?
And let me give you a full answer to your question.
Please.
When the second Hague report came in, and I provided all of this to the defense, I sent it to the person who is managing the discovery server and asked them to upload it. It wasn't until I realized during pretrial interviews that it wasn't there that there was a problem with it. So I then attempted to figure out what the problem was, and it was indicated to me that it appeared that the former paralegal who was working for the special prosecutor had removed it. So we then immediately provided it. Then during the pretrial interview of Mr. Haig, it was brought to my attention that the defense did not have the August 31st report that indicated that the gun functioned fine, perfectly fine, and that was provided immediately. I went back, I checked my email, I could see that I received it from Mr. Haig and failed to forward it on to be uploaded, and I provided it as soon as I was aware that you did not have it.
The fact that nobody at the Hannah Gutierrez retrial cross-examined Mr. Haig about the report didn't clue you into the fact that nobody had the report?
Actually, it didn't, and I'd like to address that. The reason that it didn't clue me in is because Hannah Gutierrez's defense was that the gun worked perfectly. The defense in Hannah Gutierrez was never interested in any evidence that there was an issue with the gun, because if there was an issue with the gun, it damaged her case. So what you could see, if you watched the trial or saw any of the transcripts, the defense actually brought in their own expert to say that the gun worked perfectly. So they had no interest in that information.
And actually, you elicited testimony from Mr. Haig at that trial that was inconsistent, at least partially inconsistent, as the court's aware, with his third report, correct?
Tell me what you're referring to, and I'll answer your question.
Well, there was a whole hearing about this where you saw this, and you saw me go back and forth with Mr. Haig for 25 minutes, so I don't...
I agree, but I need to know what you're talking about for me to answer your question.
Okay, if you can't answer the question, you can't answer the question, I'll move on.
I'm happy to, but...
I love it how he just said, nah.
You say that the extent of the communications you have about the doc report, as you relay it to the court, is that all you said in response was, great, do that? That's your testimony?
Yeah, I assumed that it was going to be tied to the same case number. So I said, great, do it, file a report.
No follow-up questions?
No, because I had a picture of the ammunition that didn't match the ammunition from the set of rust.
No concerns in your mind when you got the case file and you turned it over to us and it wasn't included?
Absolutely not. There's a terabyte of discovery. I didn't know whether this 2-page police report had been provided. And in addition to that, I had no reason to believe, and still have no reason to believe, that those rounds have anything to do with these cases.
As I asked you about Mr. Haig, yesterday when Ms. Popple testified, you would agree with me that her testimony under oath was false.
What part of her testimony was false, and I'll answer.
That she said that these rounds don't look anything like the rounds on the set when you elicited that testimony.
I agree with you, and I didn't realize that there were rounds that looked like that.
It's okay. In any event, when the court, and you never tested those rounds either, correct?
Any of the rounds that came from Mr. Teskey? No, because they came in just a few months ago.
And the court asked you actually one question that I want to address, which is, the court said to you, well, what's interesting to me, to be quite honest, is that yesterday you didn't even want to do a written reply. You wanted to just give an oral response. And what you said to the court was, I never saw these, I've never seen these, and I never saw the report. I have absolutely never seen these until this morning. Do you remember saying that to the court?
With regard to the 3 Starline brass, with regard to the 3 cartridges that appear to be similar to rust, yes.
Well,
I never saw them until today.
Well, but you said also, I never saw the report, right?
I never did.
Right, but don't you think, given your duty of candor to this court, that that's awfully misleading to not tell the court at that point that you knew about this when it occurred long ago?
That I knew about what?
You knew that Mr. Teskey had turned in this evidence, that you knew that the report would have existed because you just told this court that the doc report was okayed by you.
Sure.
Don't you think it was misleading to this court to not just say at that point, you know, just so you know, I know about this, I knew about this then, I was involved?
I did not intend to mislead the court. My understanding of what was dropped off at the sheriff's department is on this computer screen, and it looks absolutely nothing like the live rounds from the set of rust.
The truth of this matter is, you don't like Mr. Baldwin very much, do you?
You know, that is absolutely untrue. I actually really appreciate Mr. Baldwin's movies. I really appreciated the acting that he did on Saturday Night Live, and I really appreciate his politics.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a...
Okay. This to me is one of the funniest moments, how his head, I mean, he gives himself whiplash. By the way, the word that they out was sea sucker. I think we might have to do a replay on that. So just remember, it's, doc sucker. Okay. So let's do a replay of that.
The acting that he did on Saturday Night Live, and I really appreciate his politics.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a...
I do not recall saying that. I know that was something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of Rust. I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny that under oath?
Without having more information, I can tell you that I do not recall ever saying that. And if I did say it, I invite you to point it out to me.
You called him an arrogant prick to another witness.
To who? To what witness?
I'm asking you, did you call him an arrogant prick during a witness interview?
I don't believe I did. I don't recall.
Do you deny that?
Without knowing what you're talking about, all I can tell you is that I can't respond if I don't know what you're talking about.
And you said also to witnesses that you would teach him a lesson.
I never said to witnesses that I would teach him a lesson. Absolutely not. In fact, Mr. Spiro, I want to give a full response to your question.
Oh, God.
I made every effort in this case to resolve this case with your client in a very favorable way for him.
All right, I'm going to move to strike this. It's not responsive.
It is responsive.
I don't want to talk about plea negotiations.
Yeah, and it's not responsive. So I have no further questions.
Do you have any follow-up testimony?
I want to say I have no recollection of calling him any of those names. I have invited the defendant to tell me what he's talking about.
She don't want to hear anymore.
And he has declined. I want the court to take notice of that.
Well,
thank you. You may step down.
Let's face it. I believe the court is going to take a lot more notice of this other situation. Isn't that crazy? And she seems like she has no fear. Of course, she is a special, what they call a special prosecution, so she's not linked to the office here, but I don't know what her career is going to look like after this. I guess we will see.
Dismissal with prejudice is a very extreme sanction. And case law is very clear that because it's very extreme, I have to go through every single element, and I have to make a very good record as to why I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So, in order to establish a Brady violation, the defendant must show that the prosecution suppressed evidence, the evidence was favorable to the accused, and the evidence was material to the defense. So let's go through the elements. Suppression of evidence. The definition of suppression of elements, this is Case versus Hatch, is while the first element requires proof that the prosecution suppressed or withheld the evidence in question, it does not require a finding of bad faith or any other culpable state of mind on the part of the prosecutor. This prong is satisfied. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office and the prosecution failed to disclose the supplemental report to defense and provide defense an opportunity to inspect the rounds collected into evidence that Mr. Teskey gave. Is the evidence favorable to the accused? The second Brady element is whether the suppressed evidence was favorable to the accused, either as impeachment or exculpatory evidence.
I think it's just beginning to hit him his attorney whispered something to him that this is going to be, and I'm not sure, I don't want to say 100%, but I believe somebody said that is his sister. It's clearly some family member, I'm sure, who is realizing what's going to happen.
This prong is satisfied. The suppressed evidence is favorable to the accused. It is impeachment evidence, has even been offered in this trial as impeachment evidence, and is potentially exculpatory to the defense. Critically, the exculpatory value cannot be analyzed at such a late juncture because of the non-disclosure. Is the evidence material? While post-trial discovery of evidence under Brady requires a reasonable probability that the result of the proceeding would have been different, discovery of evidence during trial requires an evaluation of whether the late tender has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it impacts the fundamental fairness of the proceedings, and that is State versus Huerta Castro. This evidence is material. The late discovery of this evidence during trial has impeded the effective use of evidence in such a way that it has impacted the fundamental fairness of the proceedings. The defense is not in a position to test the state's theory as to the source of the live rounds that killed Ms. Hutchins. I'm also going to take a look at Harper, State versus Harper. The assessment of sanctions depends upon the extent of the government's culpability, weighed against the amount of prejudice to the state, quoting Chenard. Let's go through culpability. Our case law generally provides that the refusal to comply with a district court's discovery order only rises to the level of exclusion or dismissal where the state's conduct is especially culpable, such as where evidence is unilaterally withheld by the state in bad faith, or all access to the evidence is precluded by state intransience. The state is highly culpable for its failure to provide this discovery to the defendant. The state unilaterally withheld a supplemental report. Santa Fe County Sheriff's Officer made the decision, and apparently also with the prosecutor, pursuant to Hancock's testimony, that the evidence was of no evidentiary value and failed to connect the evidence to the instant case. The case agent, as well as pursuant to Hancock's testimony, Ms. Morrissey, was aware of the new evidence and yet did not make an effort to disclose it to defense. The state's willful withholding of this information was intentional and deliberate. If this conduct does not rise to the level of bad faith, it certainly comes so near to bad faith as to show signs of scorching. Prejudice. When discovery has been produced late, prejudice does not accrue unless the evidence is material and the disclosure is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial. The court concludes that this conduct is highly prejudicial to the defendant. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and this disclosure during the course of trial is so late that it undermines the defendant's preparation for trial. There is no way for the court to right this wrong. Lesser sanctions under Harper. Trial courts possess broad discretionary authority to decide what sanction to impose when a discovery order is violated, State versus Lemire. The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case. The state has repeatedly made representations to defense and to the court that they were compliant with all their discovery obligations. Despite their repeated representations, they have continued to fail to disclose critical evidence to the defendant. Brady and Harper are satisfied. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted. Court also has power, inherent power. Per State versus Lemire, where discovery violations inject needless delay into the proceedings, courts may impose meaningful sanctions to effectuate their inherent power and promote efficient judicial administration. The state's discovery violation has injected a needless, incurable delay into the instant jury trial. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted to ensure the integrity of the judicial system and the efficient administration of justice. Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted. Now, with respect to the jury, I don't imagine you all want to return on Monday. I will take care of the jury.
Thank you.
We are in recess. I'm going to
Dismissal, Judge? Dismissal?
Go ahead.
Thank you all for your help.
Justice will never be served for the victim, but for this kind of situation, it was served. No matter what you think, People were sneaky. I need people with integrity. Integrity, people. So I thought, while I give my final thoughts, I would share this picture of Helena Hutchins with her husband Matthew, or I think they call him Matt, and her son Andros. Man, I get so I get so into this, and just feel it's hard sometimes. But my thoughts are, I do not believe Alec intended to do that. Sounds like there was some chaos on the set. It would appear to me at the end of the day, Hannah would be the one responsible. Though, I mean, that's my understanding. If that was her job, he shouldn't have to worry about it. And that's just my opinion. So don't get mad at me. I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. And I feel like probably running and doing that interview probably wasn't good. And I know that they're going to be having some reality show. I think my biggest hope would be that they don't talk anything about this. And sorry, I have that pointer right there on poor Matthew's face. That they don't talk about this as a sign of respect to this family who has lost their mother and wife, because it's sad. But I will say I did feel emotional for Alec. That's just my thought. It's just my thought. I mean, thank goodness he still has his family and everything, but I can't imagine that he doesn't feel horrible and it doesn't haunt him every day and he wishes things were different. Now, maybe his actions and how he spoke maybe didn't, but it's not like, I think he probably was horrified, shocked, sad. People don't always do the right things, even though their intentions are well. But, justice was served as far as the law. And, this family, it's sad because, like I said, Andros, the son, he's probably around 12 by now. Just think, losing your mom at 9. Some of y'all, I'm sure, probably have lost your parents young. I was lucky to have my parents to be around both in their 80s. And even then, it's never long enough. But to lose someone that young is just hard. And she's so young. And just looking at her pictures, and I was just looking at some, friends, people talking about her, you can just see, I mean, she is outwardly, I think, absolutely beautiful, but I think what does it is that she seems to have this inward light that just lights herself up. You could just tell, lights up her whole being is what I'm trying to say. Because if you look at pictures and videos, you can just tell she loves what she's doing, and I'm sure she would have gone on to do even more and be even more successful. But we all say a bunch of what ifs, don't we? And now I'm getting all sappy. I'm not trying to, but it does. It gets me. I'm tired too, but also it does. It makes me very sad anytime an innocent life is lost. But I know, on a brighter note, I hope that this, maybe none of y'all were interested in it. I don't know, but sometimes Daryl will be coming up again. I'm going to continue with Shonda Vander Ark and some others. And of course, Sarah. I probably missed something on Sarah. But I started working on this. I've been working on this all weekend and today. I do a lot of research first, and then, like I said, my quality, I don't have a lot of things, a lot of tools, so I do the best I can as far as presentation. But I do put a lot of effort in to try to give you all the best information and maybe little interesting tidbits and everything like that. But I mean, this case was, like I said, things that everybody's saying, they meaning the people on TV and everywhere, YouTube, whatever, wherever you look, news, that this is something that doesn't happen real often. So I thought, well, again, I think I know I said earlier, it's one for the books, and this probably will be something that will. So justice was served. It's sad to see that there's corrupt people, but thank goodness for Miss Johnson, the one who said, nah, I'm not having any part of this, and showing her moral and ethic character. It is refreshing. I think Chris Cuomo said that, and it is. And I just say, continue to keep Helena's family in your hearts, Matthew and Andros. And thank you all, as always, for watching, commenting, subscribing. I love you. Go out, be kind to someone, but don't forget to be kind to you. And I'll see you the next time.